We're going to continue on sexual economics in this particular video. And today the main thing we will talk about is sexual costs. Why men spread their seeds and why women are very picky when it comes to having sex. Alright? Namaste everyone. What we're going to talk about is the cost which a man or a woman incurs as a result of sexual activity. So like sex is basically used for the pure sake of procreation by almost every species. It is mostly human beings who use sex to just fuck around, literally, like to have fun or as a recreationary activity. The thing is, in terms of biology, sex is supposed to result in pregnancy and childbirth. So looking at that as the end result of sex rather than as a one night stand or a fun, or a fun thing to do for one night, you need to realize that the cost which is incurred by a male or a female differs drastically. All right, and the reason that happens is because if a woman has sex and becomes pregnant, it takes a huge physical, mental, emotional toll on her and her body. And not just for the time that she is pregnant, which for human beings is around 9 months, but also in the future for next many years, because humans are the worst kind of species to have as children. Why? Because when a human being is born, he is a needy piece of shit who is like dependent on you for an extremely long period of time. All right. In almost every other mammalian species, what happens is that after a child is born, it doesn't take that long before the child becomes independent and actually separates himself or herself from the parents. But in human beings, they stick around for quite a fucking long time. All right. So if you see, the woman's responsibility when it comes to raising the child and bearing the cost of actually bearing the child through pregnancy is a very, very high cost compared to, let's say, if you take a man, all he has to do is like shh and go. Okay, so a man does not incur any cost which is similar to that of women's, because of which the effort to reproduce is almost nil for a man, besides the amount of time it takes for him to go from stimulation and getting his dick sucked to actually coming in a girl's vagina. Alright? So because of this, he goes after quantity, which we spoke about in the previous video, because if the effort is so low, he'll like try to reproduce as much as possible so that he can leave as many consecutive sets of genes on this planet, to propagate his own set of genes further, so that he leaves more offspring, so that they reproduce more and more. And again, for those who are watching this as the first video on my channel, I'll give the link to the survival and reproduction video, as well as the video at the beginning of this particular series, so that it makes sense to you as to why we're talking about sexual costs. So basically, because for a man it's so easy to just shag and fuck off, that for him the cost is extremely less. So he will reproduce with as many as possible, as much as possible. Alright? Whereas if you think about a woman, women go for long periods without having sex because, as I said, the risk for them, the cost to them is extremely high. Alright? It's like for multiple years. And also it kind of reduces their value in the sexual marketplace if they become pregnant. Alright? This is again a very, very deep concept which I'll talk about sometime in the future. And another thing I'll talk about is how the selection of sexual partners has been greatly impacted by the invention of the contraceptive pill, which is easily available nowadays, and how that has impacted society. So that is something I'll talk about in the future. But for now, this is what I want you guys to understand, that in terms of cost for a woman, it's extremely high. So when you have to pay shitloads to buy something, you're going to be extremely selective of what you're buying, and you want to make sure it is top notch, it is the best quality. Alright? That's why women are extremely selective in whose seed they take. Versus if you look at men who pay nothing in order to reproduce. That is why you'll see that men, even if they have a hot wife, they might reproduce or have an affair with somebody who's not as beautiful, and will just do it because, as I said, evolutionarily they are after quantity. Another consequence of this, or another reason of this extremely careful selection of a male mate by a woman, is because a woman in nature, not in today's feminized society, would always, at that point of time when she's pregnant, especially in the human beings, because we are speaking about human beings and how the baby human is very, very dependent for a long time on the woman, she needs to mate with a man who is of top genetic quality and also who will make sure to provide and protect for that woman. He'll need to protect her in terms of when she's pregnant and even when they have a little child, because physically a man is stronger. And if somebody wants to refute that, like, I don't know what to say, but yeah. So physically, the physical well-being of a man allows him, or the physical qualities of a man allows him in nature, we're not talking about today's society, to be the one to protect the pregnant woman as well as a little child if they've already had the child. Alright? And when we talk about the woman selecting the best possible male, we are talking about the kind of male who has the ability to go kill a wild animal, bring him back for food for the baby and the mother. Or if a predator comes towards the family to hurt them, that he has the ability to defend the family. So the better he is in terms of genetic quality, the better the chances of him being selected as a mate for the woman. Okay. And for those who might refute that nowadays none of this applies, let me tell you one thing: human beings and society, especially, so the artificial society that we have created has evolved at a much faster pace because of our intelligence in a way. But evolution works extremely slow, alright? And probably almost 99.9% of the time that human beings have been on this planet, they have been here in the natural state of nature. So our brains are still programmed in the way where how they were, they're still programmed the same way as they were when we were living in the jungles and in the savannas and in the deserts and stuff like that. Alright? Where we were naked, didn't wear these fucking fancy clothes, and we would just fuck when we would want to. We would just break something off a tree and eat it, rather than now how we have complicated that process of simply putting food in our mouth. Where we have to get up in the morning, set an alarm, wear clothes and drive to an office and sit in an air-conditioned place to do some shit, only to go through that whole shitty process and day to come back home and then finally put food in our mouth. Alright? Whereas earlier, there's a bird in front of me, I could have just fucking killed it and eaten it. Or I could have simply broken a fruit off a tree or picked off something from the ground and had it. Alright? And my need for survival would have been met. So as I said, that most of the time that human beings have spent on this planet has been in a state of nature in which human females depended on the males to bring them protection as well as provide for them. Alright? And there's nothing wrong with this. This was the way things are. And man and woman cannot be without each other. Nobody is superior. They are both equal, but they are not the same. Okay? The same way men needed women to reproduce. Otherwise, a man cannot fuck another man and give birth to a baby. So as of now, guys, I have had these 3 videos on sexual economics where I'm trying to explain the phenomenon of why men are beggars and women are the ones who choose, and why society jumps to help a woman in terms of need, during times of need, or when she might be threatened under emotional, physical, mental harm of any kind. Whereas for men, people don't really care that much. Men are considered disposable and women are not. Alright? And people don't care as much for a man's life as they do for a woman's life. Alright, especially when we are talking about ripe, young, fertile, youthful men and women. Why? Because if you see, as I said, a woman can only have a limited number of children at one point of time, whereas a man can have literally, almost, if you imagine, he can have unlimited number of offspring. Okay? So even if, society comes down to 100 people, if there is one man and if there are one healthy man and 99 women, the human species, Homo sapiens, will have a better chance of survival rather than, let's say, if there are 99 men and 1 woman. Alright? The woman, is fucked literally then. It's pretty bad for her. And at the same time, men would be killing each other and, they would kill each other simply for a chance to reproduce with that woman. And this is actually true. Even if today you pick 100 modern civilized individuals of this lovely society that we have created and put them on an island in which there's only 1 woman, you don't you can't even fathom to begin, like you can't even begin to fathom the thought of what will actually happen on that island, and how ruthless and brutal a civilized man will become simply to make sure that his genes survive. All right. But anyway, that is a pretty different scenario to think about and talk about in the future. So for now, I'm going to leave it at this, and I want you guys to think. And I will try to come up with more concepts on sexual economics to talk about. As of now, I'm trying to keep it very simple, and that's why I've spoken about the economics, like the situation which arises because of the economic forces being created by the availability of sperm and eggs. The second thing that I spoke about was the sexual market, which is created because of these two forces, and how the demand and supply is totally in the favor of women in terms of them being the sellers, and it's a seller's market. And the third final thing which I spoke about right now was sexual cost, and why it is extremely expensive for a woman to reproduce versus how expensive it is for a man. And guys, I really want you to think a lot on this. Think about this more as philosophy rather than scientific knowledge, because it'll help you understand a lot of things in life. You'll be able to trace back every action of almost every human being to ultimately the goal of having a good fuck. Okay? So I'm going to leave it at this. I'll come back in the future with more videos on this particular topic. Write in the comments whatever you are able to reach at as a conclusion based on these particular bits of information that I'm sharing with you. And if you come across a revelation of any kind, please share it with all of us, because I also want to become smarter. I'm just one guy at the end of the day. If I become more educated, the faster I get more education, I'm going to probably change my thoughts or build upon them. So for now, I'm just going to say bye-bye, and I'll see you guys soon.